Okay, our opening statement tonight. Our opening statement is, I am free. Did I get it right? Let's say it together. I am free. One more time. I am free. Let's take it into as we start our service with a time of prayer. I want you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to feel the activity of God. That you're free. You're free. You're free to be the most amazing expression of God that you came to be. You're free to be wise. You're free to be deep and prosperous and loved and loving, peaceful, happy. I'm free. So tonight, over and over again, I want you to entertain that idea that I came to be free. I came to set myself free from all the drama of the past. I am free. I am unlimited. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks, and so it is. Amen. Will you join with me as we affirm our mission together? Unity of Phoenix is a loving spiritual community that welcomes all people and honors all paths to God. We are dedicated to transforming lives by inspiring and awakening individuals to experience God's Spirit within them.
Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel God's mighty power and God's grace. I can feel the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
I want you to take a deep breath. And I want you to feel the presence of God that is within you and all around you. For most of us, our spiritual journey in this life and in this experience is learning that we can trust God. That we came into a world of form. We came into a three-dimensional reality. And we're learning that God is right there. That whatever the need, whatever the situation, that all we really need is God. And that God is in every moment, in every experience, in every day. And that as we become into that constant reminder that all I need is God. For my family, for my work, for my health, for my relationships. All I need is God. Jesus said to seek ye first the kingdom and its righteousness. And then everything else will be added unto you. So tonight we put our full focus and attention on the one presence and the one power, God the good. And we tell our soul the truth. All I need is God. With God, everything else is provided. God is my source. God is my infinite supply. That over and over and over again, we put our focus on God. and everything else happens. Everything else is there. All I need is God. In my job, in my relationship, with my body, with my family, in my community, all I need is God. Because when I have God, everything else is provided. All I need is God. God first. God foremost. God is my one and only source. God. 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 Can you feel God tonight? Can you see the infinite presence and power of God that is all around you? Can you feel God's Spirit guiding you and directing you? Can you feel God's grace blessing you with infinite goodness? Tonight, what if the only thing you focused on was God? Could you trust that everything else would be provided? God. God. My God. My source, my inspiration. God. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks to God for being God. We look to God in every moment of every day. We trust God in every situation. Focus your soul upon God, and everything will be provided. Hook your soul to the infinite grace of God and feel the overflowing goodness pouring into your life. God is my source. God is my supply. God is the focus of every moment of every day. God. Pure God. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen.
Thy will
Okay, so what did Jesus say the most important 2 commandments were? Anybody know? We get bonus questions. No, honor? No. What did he say? The most 2 commandments. Number 1 was love the Lord your God with all your mind, your heart, your soul. And he said the second one was like the first one, and to neighbors yourself. Okay, good. All right, good. All right, we're doing good. So far, so good. All right? Today, what I'm going to talk about, because I'm doing this series on the Sermon on the Mount, I want to talk about the next, what I believe are 10 verses that are probably the most powerful illustrations of that teaching. And it's in the Sermon on the Mount. And I believe that these 10 verses are incredibly confrontational, spiritually confrontational. They're hard to live. When we hear them, we don't actually want to live them. I mean, when we hear these words, it's kind of like, I don't want to live that. Right? But I'm telling you, it is really the epitome of what he taught. And our humanity, our ego, wants to rebel against it. Because we want to scream, it's not fair. Have you ever said that about a situation in your life? It's not fair. Like, how many of you have wanted to vote that if it's not fair, you shouldn't have to do it? Right? And how much, when something's not fair, do we just get ourselves all wound up about something that's not fair, right? And we get really aggressive. We get really angry. We get really violent when we don't think something's fair. We get upset. We feel, how many of us who don't ever think that we get victimized feel victimized when something doesn't feel fair, right? Do you know how, when you're feeling, you know how you know when you feel victimized? This is like the easiest way in the world. Every time you're angry, you feel victimized. Every time. So every time you're angry, at some level you feel victimized, because we don't get angry unless we feel victimized. So 100% of the time. So if you say, well, I never feel victimized, but I'm always angry, those are not quite in integrity, right? Because some of us don't think that we get victimized, but we are angry a lot. Right? And so today we're going to look at those scriptures that have the incredible power to tick us off. They just do, right? So enough. Have I warmed this up enough? So here we go. I'm in Matthew 5, and tonight, and I'm going to go from verse 38 to 48. Right? You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist evil. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them and offer the other. And if anyone wants to sue you for your shirt, hand over your coat as well. And if anyone forces you to go a mile, go then another mile. Give to one another what he asks, and do not turn away for those who want to borrow from you. Okay, that's just the first 6. How many of you have ever heard a Christian on TV launch into a tirade about evil? Right? Whatever they've defined evil is at that moment, right? How many crusades were launched against whomever, the idea of eradicating evil? Right? Has everybody heard this? Right? So what I want you to hear is there's a fundamental part of Christianity that's about eradicating evil, right? That's about going out and whoever is responsible, and you can even hear, some televangelists tell you when a natural disaster happens, who's the group that was responsible for it because they're doing evil. Right? And they can actually, they know the mind of God so well that they can actually draw a correlation for their people, what the mistake was, what the evil was, what the sin was, and how it was manifested physically. And they share that information, right? Right? And if you look at the history of our country, our world, not more our world, you can see Christians launching crusades, usually against the Muslims, right, to eradicate evil. And what I want you to see is that one of Jesus's fundamental teachings is resist not evil. Because one of the things that he taught over and over and over again is that there is no other. Do you know what I mean by other? It's whoever you draw the circle around that's outside your circle. And we have this huge ability to make other people our other, our adversary, our opponent. The one that we believe is keeping us from our good. And what if tonight we could move beyond that? What if Jesus really said, do not resist evil? What if you had to open your heart big enough for everyone? Can you imagine going that big, loving that big, that you would actually begin to notice when you start telling a story that's about exclusion of anyone, that no one would be outside the circle of whom God loves. Everyone would be included. Now, let me tell you a story. When I was about 15, in the Unity Church that I grew up in, we were looking at this whole idea of turning the other cheek. And I thought this idea was the craziest idea that I'd ever heard. That if somebody popped me, I'm supposed to say, okay, try this one now, right? I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. And, we were all talking about it. And I made a commitment as a 15-year-old young man sitting in my little Sunday school class that I was going to try to live this. Really? That I was really going to try to live this. And literally, within a few days at school that week, I got an opportunity to live this. Because one of my greatest blessings and my greatest liability has been my mouth. Like it's not hard for any of you to believe that, is it, right? So with my mouth, I have uplifted people. I've made a difference. And I also have this unbelievable ability just to tick people off, right? That it's both a giver and a taker kind of a thing, right? So I've offended people, and I've said crazy things, and I've said even stuff that I wish I hadn't said have come out of this mouth of mine, and usually it's for good. But sometimes, right? So I had a friend of mine, Bob. I won't give his last name, but Bob. And apparently he took objection to something that was coming out of my mouth about him. He took it very personal, right? And Bob was a full foot shorter than I was. And we were in gym class, and he turned and popped me right in the mouth. And if you've ever been hit in the mouth, it really hurts, right? It doesn't just kind of hurt. Like, it really hurts. Like, instantly there was blood. My lips went boop, 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 right? And it hurt. And I had to make a decision right there because I just I don't know. My whole life it's been like this. where I make a spiritual decision, and within 3 or 4 days, the universe gives me an opportunity to say, you said it, now do you really want to live it? So within 3 or 4 days, I get popped in the mouth, and I've got to decide if I'm going to live it. And I decide that I'm not going to hit him back. I'm just not going to hit him back. And the PE teacher was right there, and he wrote us up, and we went to the office, and the vice principal had us sit down in his chair, and he's ready to throw us both out of school and at least expel us for a day or so for fighting. And he said, well, what happened? And I said, well, apparently I offended him, my dear friend. I offended my dear friend. And he said, well, I'm going to have to expel you for fighting. And I said, wait, we didn't fight. I just got punched. 1 punch is not a fight. 2 punches is a fight, right? And he said, you didn't hit him back? And he looked at me with just absolute shock, like, I know it's the stupidest thing I've ever done not to hit him back, right? And I said, no, I didn't hit him back. And he said, okay, well, then you're free to go. Really, free pass with a punch in the mouth. How cool is that, right? And I laughed. But you know that thing where you do the right thing, but you don't feel good about it? Like I did the right thing, but my heart wasn't in it. I did the right thing because I wanted to see if I could do the right thing, and it didn't feel right. I didn't feel better about it because my heart wasn't in it. And so I went off, and the story went around the campus that Richard got popped by Bob, and he didn't do anything about it. And in gym, over the next 2 weeks, I had 2 other guys that wanted to take a pop at me. I got in 2 more fights by guys who wanted to see if I was going to. And the next 2 guys, I punched back. And so my experiment lasted about a week. But I want you to hear how much it bothered me. Like this theme has reoccurred in my life, not physically, because I've never been punched again. But this theme in my life has reoccurred over and over and over again to say, can you do it with more love? Can you be in that place? And how much can you love? Because that human part of us wants revenge, right? Have you ever been in a situation that you wanted revenge? If it wasn't for you, maybe you wanted revenge for somebody else. Like there's a human part of us that thinks when we're put upon, when somebody takes advantage of us, when it's wrong, we want to be right. Because there's a human part of us that doesn't really believe that God's going to do anything about it. And if we don't do anything about it, then we're going to be victimized over and over and over again. So tonight, what is the place in your life where you have felt the most victimized? Does everybody have one? Maybe it was in work, maybe it was in relationship, maybe it was physical, maybe it was emotional. Where is the place where you have felt the most victimized? Would you be willing to give that to God for a greater blessing, for a greater level of good than you can even imagine tonight? See, when we're always trying to settle the score, like, because this whole thing was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And in the region of the world, it was actually not only appropriate, but it was expected that if someone came at you, you would come at them at the same level and do the same amount of damage that was done unto you. That's how you settled the score. That's how you get revenge. That's how you make things right again. Because there wasn't really a concept that God could make all things right. That God could actually overcome those situations. You know, and I have seen people be incredibly victimized in ways that are hard and painful and awful and terrible that I would never want for anyone. And I'm not saying to keep putting yourself back in those situations over and over again. But what if the place where you have felt the most victimized, you were to give to God? And what if God could make that right in a way that your humanity, your ego, could never fix it? Would you be willing to give that to God tonight? Because it looks to me, if you look at the whole world right now, that there are so many places of conflict that we're trying to slug it out. And Gandhi's whole thing that, you know, if it's always about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, then we're all going to be blind. So what if in the place where you feel the most put upon, where you feel the most taken advantage of, what if you were to give that to God tonight? And say, God, I don't know how to make this right. Because maybe you feel deeply wounded or deeply taken advantage of, or it was just wrong. And what if you give it to God tonight to see what God can do with it? Because the human part of us, as we try to keep taking things, doing it our way, we just create more and more levels of pain. And what if tonight we even trusted God with our vulnerability, with our wounded place? And what if with God there's a way that's even greater? Because then he goes on. Let me read you the last 4 because it even gets better. He goes on and says, you have heard it said to love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you to love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of the Father in heaven, who causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain to the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward do you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? Aren't even the Gentiles doing that? But be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. See, I know we don't want to do this. I mean, we're intrigued by the idea of what if we actually gave it to God? But there's a human part of us that says, I want revenge. I want revenge. I want somebody else to hurt as much as I've hurt. I don't want to pray for them. I don't want to wish them well. I want them to suffer. I want them to be miserable. I want them to feel as bad as I felt. And what if today you are willing to trust God with all of your pain? What if you were willing to give all your pain to God and see what God could do with it? Because there's this idea that, that God has a way of blessing you in a way that's infinitely greater than you could bless yourself. See, you might even be able to figure out a way to get revenge and still not feel good about it. But what if tonight you gave it to God and said, I don't know what you're going to do with this one, God, but I'm tired of carrying this one with me. I'm tired of feeling bad. I'm tired of feeling victimized. I'm tired of feeling small. Whatever the feeling, what if you gave it to God and said, I'm ready to let this one go. I'm ready to give this pain to you because I'm ready to feel better. And what if this is how we all get perfected? What if this is how we all become like God? Is to be willing to love and to give even when that human part of us doesn't want to. So here's the experiment. I want you to pick the area in your life where you're still holding on to something. And if you don't have one, just ask your neighbor, because we got enough stuff in this room, right? And it might be a work thing, it could be a physical thing, it could be a relationship thing, it could be a financial thing, it could be a family thing, it could be but everybody's got a thing. And what if the thing that you've been holding on to, maybe for years, you just finally said, I'm giving this one to God. Not because I want them to be punished or put down anymore, but I want to be blessed. And I believe that God can bless me in a greater way. And that interests me. Because even with revenge, there's not a big blessing that comes with it. But if you give it to God, I think we're going to be wildly blessed. You willing to try? Okay, let's do it. Let's close with a time of prayer. And I invite you to open your mind and your heart, whatever that thing that you've been holding on to, whatever the situation, whatever the problem, whatever the challenge, whatever the thing. And tonight, what if you just gave it to God? Wherever you've been the most angry, the most disappointed, the most fearful, what if you could just give it to God? And I imagine seeing you actually taking it from your heart and placing it in the infinite hands of God. Whatever that situation was, actually taking it from your heart, wherever you've been holding it, and giving it to God. Placing it in the infinite hands of your Creator. God, I'm ready to let this one go. And I might have to do this 100 more times, but tonight I'm ready to let this one go. That I'm willing to give this to you, that I may be wildly blessed. That only good is going to come from this situation for me. That I am open and receptive to wherever that place has been in my soul, that you fill it with love and joy and peace and an overflowing goodness. Resist not. Resist not. For the glory of God is greater than any wound, any disappointment, any frustration. Tonight, let it go. And let the pure love of God heal you completely. And so it is. Amen. Okay, let's stand. Let's sing together our song of peace.
In this eternity, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Together, our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. God bless you all. Have a great night. Thanks for being here.